Hey guys, I'm Brian, better known on RC Groups and RC Universe as Tumblr, and I wanted to make a video on how I lay up a horizontal stabilizer for my F-100. And the reason why I was doing this is because I'm always watching these videos on YouTube, and this is basically how I learned how to mold and make molds. And my wife saw me watching videos and asked me why I never post videos of my stuff. So I figured, hey, why not? Maybe I can help somebody else learn something that took me a while to figure out, and maybe somebody can point out something that I'm not doing, then maybe I could be doing better. So I figured, why not? So I mixed up some epoxy here, and we have the molds pre-primed, and I'm going to go ahead and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just wet out some of the edges that the sharp edges where the glass does not like to lay down smoothly. Glass does not like to bend at 90-degree angles, so you really have to make sure that you get these areas wet out, and then in a second we're actually going to add some additional epoxy that has been thickened up a bit. So what I do is I mix up epoxy, some Cabosil, and some microballoons into a thick mixture. I put it in a plastic bag, twist it, put a piece of tape on it to keep it from pushing back in the bag. Cut a hole in the end. It's basically like a pastry bag. You could use a pastry bag too. And then I'm just going to go along the trailing edge, and I'm just squirting a little in here. You can use a syringe, pretty much use anything that'll do this. But I just find this is the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to do it. I put a little extra here. And sometimes it takes, a couple molds, a couple layups with the same mold before you figure out where those tough spots are. But in general, a lot of molds are very similar, and they all have these 90-degree bends like this that make it difficult for the glass to lay down. The other thing is you need to start off with light glass. Generally, you need to start off with light glass on your first layer no matter what, but you need to use really light glass in these areas. Something like 3/4 ounce, or maybe even 1 or 1.4 ounce will work, but the 3/4 ounce is really the way to go. I've noticed that when you do the trailing edge here and then bag it down, it'll pull away. So sometimes I've even laid the glass around the edges here, let that green up, trim that, and then do the rest of the layup maybe an hour or two later. That seems to work really well if you have time and you're not in a rush to get something done. Really, that's the best way to do it. So now I'm going to lay the 3/4 ounce right here on the trailing edge. Oh, I already messed up. I forgot to put my thickened epoxy in here. Okay, now let's do that again. So we take our 3/4 ounce, and something you'll notice makes things a lot easier when you start molding is having all of your glass pre-cut. Now, again, it takes a little while to figure out a couple layups with the same mold, figuring out where you need what sizes, but if you can pre-cut the pieces and just lay them in there, it makes your life a lot easier because you're not scrambling around trying to cut everything before the resin sets up. Now I'm using US Composites, and I'm using their fast setting 4:1 epoxy, and this actually will set up very quickly. I have it poured in a plate to disperse the heat a bit, which will extend my working time a little bit, but I still only have about 15 minutes of pot life with this. So you really need to work pretty quick. It's not ideal. I just recently tried Easy Lamb 60, and that, on the other hand, was, I felt like it was too much working time. It has to needs 70 degrees or more for activation, and needs to be heat cured. So it took a while. So it's great epoxy. It worked great. It just takes a really long time to set up. So maybe the Easy Lamb 30 would be better. Maybe next time I'll try that. I'm kind of caught in the middle. The U.S. Composites is a little too slow or a little too quick, and the Easy Lamb is too fast. So I really need to mix up small batches with the U.S. Composites, and don't try to do more than you can do with a batch, because what ends up happening is it gets thick and you add excess epoxy and more weight unnecessarily. So really, when you start to see the brush start to gum up a little bit, it's time to do another batch. The other thing I started doing recently is when I lay the skins and the glass throughout the whole mold, I used to dab everything with a brush, and I saw somebody, and I apologize, I forget who. I watched a video where they actually used a small roller. There's my roller right here. Used a roller like this, and that actually, I think, really saves some weight, because it picks up any excess and helps spread things around a lot easier. So that was a nice find, and I've been doing it this way for years with the brush, and then happened to find that, and now I have found a new way. Now the other thing is when ultimately when I lay the balsa skins into the mold, the balsa skin is not going to conform to a rounded corner like the wingtip or the tip of the stab. So this is cut flush, but I want that rounded edge. So I put extra glass around there, but I'm not going to have any wood support. So that was 3/4 ounce, and here's a layer of 3 ounce, and between the two of those, that's really plenty, because the wood goes almost to the very edge, unless you're scraping the tips of the stab on asphalt regularly. This is going to be fine. Okay. And you really want to check and make sure you don't have any air bubbles, especially when you have a mold that you primed, because you're not going to be able to see those air bubbles. And when you pull it out of the mold, I learned this quickly with the first couple molds I did. You pull it out of the mold and you think you have the greatest part in the world, and then when it comes time to start doing a light sanding before painting, you notice all these pieces of primer pulling away, and you have air bubbles between the primer and the glass because you didn't check for air bubbles. And I have a lot of issues still with when I vacuum bag, and I do that especially in areas like this that they just, it doesn't seem to want to suck down right around those edges. So that's another reason why I like to actually sometimes do this area just like this, let this harden up for a couple hours, and then come back while it's tacky and do the rest, just because this is a problem area for me. There's guys that are a lot better at this than me, and I'm sure they have a better way to do it. It's just, that's what works for me, because I've struggled with it in the past. Okay, so now we got our ends done. We've got the trailing edge done. So now the next step would be laying down a layer of 2 ounce or 1.4 ounce glass, then the sheeting, and then another layer of either 1.4 ounce or 3/4 ounce. I'm going to use 3/4 ounce because I'm really trying to save weight here. So we're going to take a break, and then I'm going to come back and show you how I can continue on with this. All right?